Hello, Beth Yeshua, and anybody else who may be watching. My name is Josh Rubenstein. I'm the congregational leader of Beth Yeshua, and many of you know that we are not having a large communal Passover gathering this year, as we've often done in the past. And instead, what we're doing is we're facilitating the ability for people to have Passover Seders in their own home. So we have begun placing many links up on our website. If you go to bethyeshua.org and you scroll down on that first page, you'll see Passover links. And underneath there are some general instructions for you, as well as a Haggadah that you can use to actually go through and tell the story of Passover. And there will also be this video and another video with the pronunciation of the Hebrew throughout the Haggadah. So, a few things here. Just wanted to go over some basic needs that you need in order to be able to celebrate Passover in your home. You need a Haggadah, and we have shared ours online. You can actually go to our webpage and scroll down there, and when you click on it, each page of the Haggadah, each little prayer chunk of the Haggadah will come up as an image, and you can simply swipe. If you're on a smart device, you can scroll through them, or on a computer at home, you can click through them in order. You will also need a meal and some ceremonial foods, and you'll find the instructions for that meal and those ceremonial foods also on our website, bethyeshua.org. How can you find it? So if you go to bethyeshua.org and you look for the Passover links, you'll find in this middle section of that first page several videos, this video, another one on the pronunciation of the Hebrew, and a PDF document that you can click on and print out that tells you about the meal and how to prepare it, and maybe what ceremonial foods you would need to prepare. And then also there will be a video in there on how to pronounce the Hebrew. Number 3, what ceremonial foods and items do you need? Well, in Passover, there is a Seder plate, and on that Seder plate, you have several of those ceremonial foods, including a roasted egg and a shank bone and maror, the bitter herbs, and others. So it's something that's on that page once again, and it'll walk you through each of the ceremonial needs that you would need. So you go over to bethyeshua.org, once again, under Passover links, and if you look for how to celebrate a Seder meal, I think it's called something like that, the document, you can click on it and it will download and you can print it out. Which brings us really to the most important part, which is, what is the essence of Passover? What is it all about? And we're told, both in the Torah and also in all the interpretations, that really it's a celebration of God bringing people out of slavery so they can worship Him. And so there's one larger way to celebrate this, which is that God is freeing the Jewish people historically at that one moment in time, and He's bringing them out, and He's demonstrating His power and His glory, and He's saying it all, and He's doing all these things, not just so that He can demonstrate that He is God and Pharaoh is not. He's also doing this so He can bring a people to be a royal priesthood, to worship Him. In fact, that's not just the saying is not just let my people go, it's let my people go so that they may worship God. It's an important story. And not only is there this broad historical narrative, if you will, but there's also your personal story of how you have been freed from slavery, maybe slavery to fear, maybe slavery to drugs, maybe alcohol addiction. Whatever God has freed you from in your life, this is an opportunity for you to celebrate it. And there's the important reality within Passover of passing on the memories of the things that God has done from generation to generation. So dor la dor, from generation to generation, we pass on the story of how God has set us free. We're also told that we're to celebrate Passover as if we ourselves have been set free. And so it's not just this theoretical reality of like what has happened to the people in the past, and maybe it's some sort of allegory or metaphor for our spiritual lives today. We're supposed to make it as practical and real as possible. How has God set you free? Tell that story. Allow your family to enter into it. And I know it's tough if you maybe don't have family to celebrate, but you as an act of remembrance could celebrate Passover in your home, even if you're alone. And you could thank God for the ways that He has delivered you and set you free. in all of your life, not just this last year. And then, of course, Rabbi Gamaliel told us that there are three essential parts when we tell the story of Passover. There's the unleavened bread, there's the matzah, there's the bitter herbs, the maror, and there's the Passover lamb, the Pesach, the sacrifice. And each one of these elements of the story shares an important reality of how God broke into this world to set his people free. And each one of them is symbolic, not just within the context of the freeing of the Jewish people from slavery to Pharaoh, but it's also important to our lives spiritually. We're told actually during this season that we should hunt out any leavening that's in our home, because we know that leavening in some ways is equivalated to sin. There's this reality of sin that can spread in our lives, and so we should hunt for sin, and we should get it all out of our home, and we should utterly cleanse every part of our home so that we're pure and holy before God. The bitter herbs that in this life you will have suffering. You will. We all will. And in fact, some people are suffering in a major way right now because of what's going on with COVID, with coronavirus. So yes, there is bitterness in this world. How do we deal with that? How do we deal with the fact that there is a hard reality of this world sometimes, and yet we have a God who provides and brings freedom? And then, of course, the Passover lamb, the ultimate provision of freedom. Freedom from slavery happens because of the sacrifice of a pure and a spotless lamb, which, especially for us as Messianic Jews, helps us to understand that sacrifice that Yeshua himself made. And it's one of the beautiful things about our Passover Haggadah. As you scroll through it, you will see that that cup of redemption that happens after the meal, we actually use that as an opportunity to remember that Yeshua himself used that cup to help his disciples grapple with the reality that he was going to have to give his life for the sins of the world. It was something that was very hard for them to understand, and experiencing it within the Passover Seder helped them to understand where they were headed, though I don't think they quite clearly understood until they saw him sacrifice himself. So there's a lot of importance to these three elements, and I'd encourage you to think about them and meditate on them, especially during this week of Passover that's beginning on Wednesday night, and allow God to minister to you in this time of how he is a God who redeems, and he is a God who continues to save. So, I hope you enjoy all the links that we have up on our homepage. And if you have any questions, you can scroll down on our homepage, bethYeshua.org, and send an email. And you can ask questions if there's something that you're wondering about. Don't forget to look for the video on how to pronounce some of the Hebrew, but remember, pronouncing the Hebrew correctly or doing the ceremony just right is not exactly what matters. It's the telling of the story. And you have a story to tell, and that's important.